What's up? I'm back again. Uh, Barely made it this week. Uh, Trying to do these things weekly. I know I promised some other stuff, some more probably more interesting stuff too, which will be out pretty soon. Um, Man, barely made it this week. Had a lot going on. My band did our first kind of out of town show um, in Prince George, BC. Um, North, I mean, we're up in northern BC. I'm from McBride, town of like 600 people. So we don't really play shows here. There's probably 10 metalheads in the entire place, and four of them are in my band. So, you know, um, but yeah, that was cool. Had some issues, unfortunately, with my drum pedal, uh, but still a fun gig. If I get any footage of that going on, maybe I'll post some of that on here. But yeah. So anyway, still listening to music. I'm always listening to music. It's still hard to narrow it down to 10. Uh, I almost failed this week. I'm gonna have a few honorable mentions here. Before we start, I'm gonna show you all what I'm drinking here. It's a Stanley Park Crow's Hollow Pumpkin Ale. This is kind of crazy, actually. I can't get this in my local liquor store. It's from Stanley Park, so it's from Vancouver. I got it up in Prince George. Um, and man, it's very much spice, and I was expecting it to be sweeter, like a pumpkin pie kind of deal, but it's not sweet at all. It's like a beer with like a big dosage of pumpkin spice added to it. It's actually pretty good. It just was not what I was expecting the first time I took a sip. It kind of, man, it attacked me a little bit, but I actually kind of dig it. Yeah, it's pretty good. All right. Uh, Honorable mentions. Couple here. Annihilator, Never Neverland. Um, I listened to the first two Annihilator albums again this week. I don't own any Annihilator yet. I will someday. Man, those first two albums are great. Uh, you got Randy Rampage on the first album, and I forget the vocalist's name on the second album. Just give me a second here. On Never Neverland, it is Coburn Farr. He's got a definitely different style. Um, Less intense than Randy Rampage, but it still works. And man, this is just a great thrash album. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna talk too much about these because this video is gonna end up way too long. But yeah, great album. Check out those first two Annihilator if you're into thrash, technical thrash. There's lots of just straight up heavy metal on those too. Good stuff. And Cocteau Twins, Treasure. I just listened to this afternoon. Cocteau Twins is a band that I'm just kind of getting into. Really interesting stuff. Female vocalist with a Elizabeth Taylor, I believe is her name. Um, and she doesn't really sing in a language. It's kind of just uh, made up on the spot, as far as I know, for the most part, anyway. Just to be kind of phonetically pleasing to the ears. Um, yeah, Elizabeth Fraser, my bad. Fraser, not Taylor. Um, yeah, very cool band though. I've only heard their first three albums so far, so definitely gonna check out some more from them. And yeah, okay, I'm already almost 7 minutes in, so I better better get into this stuff. Um, all right, sticking with female vocalists, PJ Harvey with "To Bring You My Love." Another artist I'm just finally getting into. I kind of inherited this CD, um, and I threw this on in my car last week going to work. And man, it's really cool stuff. I have heard her first couple solo albums as well, and just really I don't know what to call it. I mean, she does a lot of different stuff on this album. There's alternative rock, there's some kind of almost bluesy stuff, there's some like noise rock as well. Um, there's some folk almost in spots as too. This is just really, really good stuff. If you're into, you know, female vocals, female songwriters, she's a great songwriter, man. Or just alternative rock in general. This is a great album. I recommend any of her first three albums. I don't know the rest yet, but I will be investigating them for sure. Okay, next up, Corner. Man, one of my favorite thrash bands. Um, I had to re-listen to Punishment for Decadence. Um, this got brought up, I want to say somewhere on Heavy Metallurgy or like their Discord channel, somewhere in there. Can't remember exactly what context, but I had to I had to re-listen to this, and then you know you get done with this album. It's like 35 minutes long or something, and it's like, man, you gotta just throw on No More Color right afterwards. Man, these albums are just absolutely killer. If you're into thrash metal at all, this is on the more technical side, I guess, but they never went over the top. Um, they still keep things fast and intense. The vocals, Ron Royce, he only does harsh vocals. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Tom G. Warrior, which makes sense because they're also from Switzerland. These guys started out as roadies for Celtic Frost. Um, but he's got a more kind of abrasive delivery. Um, Tom G. Warrior was always kind of like shouty, for lack of a better word, whereas Ron Royce is very much like he's got that rasp, that like feral kind of sort of halfway in between Tom G. Warrior and someone like Millie from Creator, the German harsh vocal thrash style. Um, these unfortunately are bootlegs. These are very early CD purchases for me back in the day when I didn't really know what I was getting. Bought them off eBay. Turns out they're both from Russia and they're definitely bootlegs. I do own RIP and Mental Vortex on actual legit copies, so I would love to own these on official versions someday, but for now, these will do, I guess. Sorry, sorry, Coroner. I love your music. Your CDs are hard to find. Not as bad now as when I bought these, but yeah. Hopefully I'll grab those one of these days. All right. Um, next up, I'm gonna go with Soft Machine. Um, man, a band that I checked out probably at least 5 years ago now. Feels like a while. I listened to their first three albums once each. I listened to Bundles. I've listened to Bundles more than any other album. That's the album with uh, Alan Holdsworth on it. Man, crazy good guitarist. I mean, he was in a lot of different bands, UK, Tempest, Gong, all kinds of stuff. Solo career as well. Crazy good guitarist. Did a lot of jazz fusion stuff. That's an amazing album, but I hadn't gone back to these early albums for quite a while. So I'm gonna shout out the first one, especially. It's really more in a psychedelic rock vein, but it really did not connect with me the first time I heard it 5 or so years ago. I just was not in the right mood for this. at the time. I did not connect with it. It sounded like a bunch of kind of disconnected pieces thrown together uh, at that point. But man, listening to this again, it is actually, the songs are pretty short, but it's really, really well put together. And there's actually a lot of hooks on here, as well as a lot of experimentation for the time. I mean, this came out in what, 1968, I want to say. Um, and yeah, like it's pretty cool stuff, especially for the time. I mean, you could compare it to like early Pink Floyd, I guess, might be the closest thing. Um, they're kind of one of the earliest bands from the Canterbury scene as well. Really cool stuff. The second album I didn't enjoy quite as much. It's kind of halfway in between the psychedelic rock stuff they were doing earlier and the more jazz rock stuff they were doing later. Third is an album I still need to revisit. I know that's more in a like fusion kind of vein, so you might see that coming up on a list here pretty soon. But yeah, for now, very, very cool stuff. Glad I checked this out again. All right, next up, I'm going with Popol Vuh from Germany. Um, Not to be confused with, I think there was a Norwegian band as well with the same name who changed their name to Popol Ace after a couple albums to avoid confusion with these guys. But uh, really cool, like underground kind of band. I mean, they were sort of in the krautrock scene. They did a lot of soundtracks as well. One of the more famous ones was the Nosferatu film from the late 70s, directed by Werner Herzog. Amazing album, soundtrack, and an amazing movie as well. I Man, I love all the Nosferatu movies. I just watched the Robert Eggers one a few weeks ago. It's great. Very dark. The original from 1922, the silent film, is amazing, of course. Um, Iconic. And even the Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola from, what is it, the late 80s, I think, early 90s. Man, that's great too. It's kind of a lighter take on it. There's a bit of comedy here and there, but man, yeah, they're all great. But this band, man, Popol Vuh, uh, man, very cool band. Um, they really combine elements of folk and psychedelic rock, jazz rock, prog rock, classical, ambient. I mean, they do all kinds of stuff. Um, you can kind of almost get a different thing with each album that you listen to. But a lot of their albums also include a lot of different styles. I have yet to hear the first album that they did, but I've heard, I want to say, the second through the fifth, maybe at this point. Um, and yeah, man, just really cool stuff. I listened to the albums Selig Preisung and Einsjager and Siebenjager. I'm sure I'm butchering those, but man, both very cool. Definitely kind of in a pretty folky vein for both of these albums, um, but a healthy dose of prog rock and psychedelia as well. Um, the first track on Einsjager and Siebenjager is a short thing, short kind of intro, and it's kind of famous because Opeth has used that for their walk-in song for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years at this point, I think, unless they switched recently. But yeah, very cool stuff. Um, Again, a band with a lot of albums. I still need to check out quite a few of them. But I'm glad to be like working my way through their catalog finally. Um, Very slowly, but I'm getting there. All right, next up, Boards of Canada. Uh, Switching things up here to some electronic kind of stuff. I had never checked these guys out. I had quite a few of their albums on my iPod years ago. I remember, I don't, maybe a decent amount of us back, 15 years ago or so did music swaps where you had a big pile of digital music that you had bought and you would transfer it to somebody else's iPod or hard drive or whatever kind of thing, back and forth, which, you know, I feel a little bit guilty about it sometimes, but I mean, we all, a lot of people in my generation downloaded a lot of music illegally off YouTube and stuff. I did as well. It was just kind of how it was at that time. I spent a lot of money on iTunes and Google Play as well. Man, I spent thousands of dollars. Not gonna lie. And am I ever gonna listen to those digital files again? I don't know. Maybe at some point, but now that I'm buying CDs and LPs and stuff, it's just so much cooler to me to have the actual booklets with the lyrics and the thank you lists and all that kind of stuff, the bigger artwork and whatnot. Yeah. Um, but I had some of these guys' albums on my iPod probably about a decade ago, and I never listened to them. So I got to shout out Jeff from Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I've been on his channel a good amount of times now, um, doing all kinds of deep dives on, 6 hours talking about Marino and Mahogany Rush or whatever the hell, David Bowie, Camel, all kinds of shit, Carcass, uh, Thin Lizzy, blah blah blah. Anyway, great guy, but um, he suggested this band to me probably 2 or 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago now, almost 2.5 anyway, and I never checked them out. But I don't know. I was just in the mood for something different, different than what I'm used to. I gravitate towards 70s rock and 80s and 90s metal for the most part. That's kind of my wheelhouse. So it's kind of cool to switch it up and listen to a style that I really don't know anything about. This is, I'm familiar with some ambient stuff. Steve Roach and Tangerine Dream, Brian Eno, Klaus Schultz, that kind of stuff. Some of the big players, but this is a little bit different. It's kind of a more modern, 30 years ago take on ambient music, I guess, because there is a beat behind it. But if you take the beat away, it is very repetitive. It's definitely more on the ambient side of electronic music. I guess it gets classified as IDM, or intelligent dance music. I'm obviously not even intelligent enough to say the word intelligent properly, but uh, yeah, I don't know. This is very cool stuff. Um, Different from anything I've really heard before. Um, Aphex Twin is another thing that's up on my list soon of stuff to check out. So keep your eyes open for that, I guess, if you are into that kind of stuff. I have no idea what that's like. I've heard 2 or 3 of his songs. He gets tagged as IDM as well, but yeah, this is just really cool stuff. Um, there's one song I really want to shout out. Um, just if you're not familiar with this kind of stuff and you want to, start somewhere, I would definitely recommend these guys' first EP, Twoism, it's called, from 1995, and especially the song 69er. That is just like, man, that puts me in such a kind of peaceful mood. It's kind of feels nostalgic, and it's not happy. It's kind of melancholic in a way, um but very peaceful. It's like, I don't know, it makes me think about the past, but you know, more so like accepting the mistakes I've made in the past and just kind of being like, okay, you know, I'll that happened, and there's still a future, there's always still a future, unless you're, you know, unless there isn't. I don't know. Anyway, who knows these days? Uh, anyway, what's up next? Up next is, God damn it, let me find my notes here. Razor. Switching it up just a little bit, going from some ambient electronic stuff to fucking full on thrash assault. Man, I I mean, I'm biased because I'm from Canada, I guess, but man, Razor, they're not one of my absolute favorite thrash bands. They're kind of inconsistent from album to album, in my opinion, but their early stuff, especially with Sheepdog, aka Stace McLaren, man, you can't go wrong with this shit, especially this album, Violent Restitution. Oh, man. The opening track, The Martial Arts, one of the longest, most intense screams in all of metal, man. I mean, the only things that rival it, really, the only thing I can think of offhand is another Canadian band. I swear I'm not trying to be super patriotic here, but Open Face Surgery, the end of Open Face Surgery by Cryptopsy, that's up there too. I haven't actually timed them out, but man, that it's just such a great intro to such a great album. This thing just fucking kicks your ass from start to finish. I think it's about 40 minutes long, and man, it's just a thrash assault. They don't let up at all. Um, it's just killer. There's no frills on this. They're not doing virtuosic solos. They're not doing 7, 8 time signatures. They're just bashing your skull in for 40 minutes. And, you know, when I'm in the mood for that, this is one of the best ways to achieve that. So, gotta shout that out. Um, all right. Switching back out of metal, Yes, with the Yes album. I'm a huge prog rock fan. I mean, if you're watching this, you probably already know that. Yes is I mean, they're probably in my top 5 prog bands. I don't know, it's hard to say, but they're up there anyway, and this is one of their best albums in my opinion. This is the first one with Steve Howe, I think. They still got, I believe, Tony Kaye on keyboards before Rick Wakeman joined the band. Um, this is just a great album, man. I mean, Yours is No Disgrace, classic song. Starship Trooper, man, one of the best Yes songs ever. Um, I've seen All Good People, Adventure, Perpetual Change. Yeah, this is really when they started getting into their prog rock phase after the early like psychedelic stuff. Um, I know some people aren't huge John Anderson fans. I get it. You know, I get he's a it sounds kind of like a fairy or whatever, very high voice, falsetto and whatnot, but I don't know. It works for me. I love Yes, and terrible, terrible album cover. I mean, you look at this and you compare it to Fragile or Close. I mean, the front cover of Close to the Edge sucks, but the gatefold is awesome. Then you got Relayer, Tales from Topographic Oceans, and all kinds of cool stuff. That's not a great cover on this. The album is better than the cover. Don't let that turn you off. Um, yeah, great album. All right, just a few left here. Man, I gotta do a shout out to Roger Jervik from Norway. I might be mispronouncing that. Um, but great dude, great channel. I've had the pleasure of being on a couple, sorry about that, a couple streams with him in the past. Um, and yeah, man, he's got an insane collection. Check out his channel if you haven't yet. He recently did a top 20 Norwegian black metal albums video at a request from Marty from Heavy Metallurgy. And man, what a killer list. Uh, there's a few, 4 or 5 albums on it that I still had to check out. Uh, one other one I'll just quickly shout out is Toulouse, Pure Black Energy. Awesome album as well. Really kind of bare bones, stripped back kind of black metal from the mid 90s. Almost kind of a black and roll thing going on at moments, but yeah, no frills, just straight ahead, pure black energy. I mean, you kind of get you know what you're getting with that title. But one of the ones he showed, his number one, in fact, his number one black metal album from Norway from the 90s anyway, was Kvist with For Kunsten Mavi Evig Vike. Probably butchering that as well. I'm a quarter Norwegian, but I've lived in Canada my entire life. I have never learned any Norse, so apologies if anyone is watching from over there, but man, this album fucking rules. I had heard this once before a couple years ago. I think I listened to it at work. Was not in the right mindset. Man, there's something to be said about listening to an album in the right environment and when you're in the right headspace. It's not always easy, it's not always possible. Sometimes you just throw on an album and you think you're in the right mood and you still enjoy it, but you don't really fully absorb it. You don't really appreciate it. And this one, man, throwing it back on, I mean, throwing it back on. I don't actually own it, but um I will someday because this is a fucking masterpiece, man. This is just a perfect Norwegian black metal album. I gotta agree with Roger here. Um, it's just got everything you could want from Norwegian black metal. There's little elements of symphonic black metal, of prog, of folk, of melodic black metal. They just throw so much in here, but just in small enough doses that they really retain that pure Norwegian black metal sound, while throwing just enough elements in there to keep things really interesting. And it is, man, this is a fantastic listen. Um, it's moving up the ranks pretty quickly for me for black metal in general, honestly. It's kind of a shame they only did one album, but you know, sometimes it's pretty cool that a band will just appear and leave one amazing thing for us to listen to and then disappear off the face of the earth. They don't need to come back 20 years later and do a shitty, weird new metal reunion album or stuff like that. Um, yeah, I don't know. This is just a great, great album. And very glad I revisited this. This is going on a pretty high priority on my wish list for sure. All right, couple left here. I'll try to make these fast. I'm already over half an hour. Um, last yesterday or the day before yesterday, going up to Prince George, to play a show. I was with my buddy Zevin in the vehicle, guitar player in my band as well. Um, and he's just getting into Mastodon. I have been a Mastodon fan for probably 13, 14 years now. I discovered them back in high school and they kind of blew my mind. I mean, I was into stuff like System of a Down and Lamb of God and whatnot. Um, but man, Mastodon really kind of opened up a new world of just, you know, metal bands coming out in that age that were being really creative and not sticking to the norm of what people wanted to hear. And I came in on the Hunter album from 2011, but going backwards at that point, I really loved everything I heard. And I finally just got this album, Blood Mountain, on the in Prince George the other day. Listened to it on the drive back yesterday. Probably their most experimental album. Um, but man, one of my favorites from them. I mean, I love the first four especially. Remission is just it just is pummeling sludge metal. Leviathan brings in more like proggy kind of experimental stuff. This goes full bore on that, and then Crack the Sky is just total prog metal. This is yeah, like I said, this is probably their most experimental stuff. Man, there's songs on here that sounds like fucking R2D2 is singing these songs. Some of the stuff on here, like I want to say Circle of Sisquatch and like Blade Catcher and stuff like that, but some of their best songs as well, like Sleeping Giant, man, and Colony of Birchmen as well. Just man, almost perfect album from start to finish for me. Um, really, really great stuff. Sludge metal, prog metal, avant-garde. There's bits of thrash on here. There's bits of country almost in spots. I don't know. They're they're such a hard band to categorize, but one of my favorites, and I don't think they'll ever make their way off that list. And another favorite, more recent, but I've really been getting into these guys in the last 5 years or so, especially Psychotic Waltz, um, with Bleeding. I was lucky enough to find a decent price for this. It came in a box set with Into the Everflow. Um, these came out in mid 2000s, I want to say. This is originally a 1998 or 99 release, I want to say. This is kind of different from their first three albums, especially the first two. The first two, especially A Social Grace, their debut has a lot of thrash on it as well. It's more of a raw production, but still very proggy. They're probably my favorite progressive metal band of the 90s, I would say. Um, I mean, even above what Dream Theater and Fates Warning and those bands were doing at the time. These guys really took it up a notch. Kind of took the basis of what some of those bands like, Fates Warning and Queensryche were doing in the 80s and kind of just took it to the next level. This is also produced by Scott Burns. So it's got a great production. Unfortunately, there's nowhere to stream this. Even on Bandcamp. Bandcamp is your best bet for this, but it still doesn't sound great. It's kind of a low quality upload, it seemed like to me, unless my settings are just not not right on that. Um, because I was trying to listen to some of it while I was in the shower today, um, off of my phone on my Bluetooth speaker, and it just sounded like shit. So I just paused it and put on the rest of the CD. But um, yeah, this isn't the easiest thing to find now. This album also, they're kind of it's the late '90s, so they're adopting a little bit more groove metal kind of stuff, but they don't go fully into that zone. They still absolutely retain enough of their own identity and their own sound to keep it from going into that kind of weird, shitty new metal, groove metal zone that I don't really care for personally. Um, Man, if you wanted to check out a song or two from this, I would definitely recommend Faded or the title track Bleeding. My Grave as well is a really cool ballad. If you're new to this band, this might not be the place to start. Depends where you're coming from. If you're coming from a prog metal or especially a thrash or more extreme metal background, I'd say the first two albums. But man, this is still great in its own right as well. I don't think these guys have a bad album at all. Anyway, there we go. Um, Probably too long of a video as always. I start yapping and I don't stop. So sorry about that, but um if you're still here, thanks very much for watching. Yeah, I'll try to get some other stuff up on my channel pretty soon within the next week or two. I should have a couple things up. I won't say exactly what they are, but stay tuned and hope you're all doing good. I'd love to hear what you guys have been listening to as well. Let me know in the comments and of course like, subscribe, all that bullshit. And take it easy, take care, and see you in the next one. And fucking rock on and all all that stuff. I don't know. I suck at these outros. See ya.